Um, I managed a gallery for 9 years in Mill Valley and continued to work in the art world for several years after that. I've since transitioned careers and now doing something completely different, but I still have a toe in the art world. And committed to working with Foad, especially because I get so much out of his work. So we don't really have a schedule or an agenda for today's program. I want it to be pretty loose and conversational. So if you have questions or if you feel moved to say something, please do. I might need to do so. I did have some questions for Foad that I thought might open things up a little bit. But again, invite you to bring your own perspectives and thoughts on things as well. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, well, first I'd just like to welcome everyone for coming with the inclement weather out. It has to be a chore to get here, so I'm really gratified that you would come. And I just hope that in our conversation today and our interaction with you, that maybe we could bring a little light. I'd like to share that and then experience your light, and hopefully that this exhibition will be something that will be like a catalyst for you to not only enjoy but also an enriching experience, one that might inspire, hopefully, and just reflect. That was my intention. So it's a contemplative show. It's meant to be that way, but it doesn't have to be. It's whatever you bring to it, whatever you want out of it. It should give you that. I try to make it fluid. A lot of ways. I'm not starting to talk. This is my introduction. I wanted to have a medium that would be fluid, certainly, and just be able to maybe impart some part of the feelings that I had towards it, the caring, the love that was in the work. That I wanted to share this at a very deep level, which is very important to me. It was my way of speaking to many things that trouble me. So this is what it's about. And I'm freshly retired from teaching as a professor at Dominican University, and I think 2 years now. I think it's my second year, and we're in the process of relocating ourselves more strategically back into the studio in order to continue the work. My sweetheart Kimberly here is a poet, and we'll read today, and so we look forward for that collaboration that we've always wanted to have, to the work going in the studio, the writing, the conversation, the richness of the experience of the interaction. All these things are very important, and I think this is really what makes life a kind of special thing to enjoy, to be a part of, even though it's difficult. And as you know, and everybody has very difficult times. It's a very difficult time. So we just have to be gentle with ourselves, try to not lose focus on the things we love, the people we love, the situations, and just do the best we can, try to be authentic with it. So that's my introduction. and have fun too, of course.
I was thinking about questions for Foad, and I was thinking they kind of fall into 3 basic groups for me. One is about being in nature, and of course this show is all about Foad's fondness for nature, or at least part of that is what drives his work. And then part of it, of course, is being an artist and the act of art itself. And then the third is just some questions I had for fun, because I was curious about them. But so I was reading this book recently about hiking and tracking the natural landscape. And the author of the book was writing how he really appreciates hiking with artists so much because, like him, they're keenly observant of the environment. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, well, this totally applies to Foad's work. So he came up with this acronym of understanding the landscape as sorted. S for shape, O for overall character, R for routes, T for tracks, E for edges, and D for detail. So I thought we could maybe break that apart, unpack it a little bit, and talk about shape and character of the scenes that you find yourself in and what you you take away from them?
Okay, that's a huge lift there. Well, I'll just say that for me, I grew up being able to be outside, and I think that's so important because to understand who I am in my work and just the characteristics and the qualities of things that I identify with and I try to duplicate and reproduce in a way. And I always knew that I would be a maker of some kind. I didn't know it would be a painter, but I knew it would be something that would be making something. Because what I was allowed to do is to simply just be outside and observe. And what I remember is that I had a great aunt, Mommy, and she was warm and loving, and I had a beautiful mother who was young. You know, she was also warm and loving. But when I was outside, that really just held me in a way that the people that loved me the most really, it also gave me that. So I always felt very comfortable being outside. And therefore, I noticed a lot of the aspects of what these things were, you know, from the smallest elements to the largest trees, you know. And of course, in the part of the United States I grew up in was mainly had the biggest trees were the giant pecan trees and the bay trees and the pine trees, you know. So those were like amazing kind of instruments of understanding and knowledge and learning from. You know, the way they would move, the way they would produce certain kinds of leaves and kind of flora and fauna around it. You know, so all of this was just part of just looking at that, and I realized that if this were true, then that meant that I was a part of that somehow, and I had to be a part. I had to be intricately the same as that, you know, in a way, but of course a different form. So nature, I mean, you know, it's just, and of course I use the word broadly, the term broadly, but it was just a being outside and being and feeling held and comforted and understood, and also understanding the dynamic principle of creation and destruction that existed within it. You know, because as things were coming up, things were going down, things were dying, you know, and disintegrating. I got that, you know, and it seems to me that there was a balance somewhere in there. And I would say from that point on, to where I am probably now, is I'm trying to understand what that balance is. What is the balance between creativity and destruction? You know, it's in there. It's an equipoise, an equilibrium somewhere. You need both parts. You know, so you know, so that pretty much is kind of how and the noticing of the characteristics and the attributes of the various materials, textures, colors, the way they would move, the way wind would affect them in such a way was all an important part of this process of learning from them.
I have so many questions that just from that, but I guess one, having seen your work over the course of your career and knowing that you kind of entertain different stages. You have a body of work that's very heavily symbolic. You have a body of work that's very realistic. And so I'm just curious for you personally, do you feel like this particular body of work in Things Known is kind of a coming home? Like if you started in that place of being in nature and looking and taking that with you, and then kind of trying out these other things that you might be interested in as well, but then revisiting that?
I think it's a combination, and it's slowly developing a vocabulary. And I think I had to start from the place I had to start from, which was basically more symbolic in a way, more thing-oriented, you know, not necessarily story-oriented, but just a thing-oriented, and like place or time, perhaps. But as I was able to elaborate on these particular themes, then I saw more fluidity in being able to move out from that, therefore less structure around theme and more towards just the freedom of making. Okay, and where I see this work, particularly the most recent, the most recent works in the show, will be a continuation of that, moving from that place. Okay, so they will probably be less identifiable in that regard, but I think it's important also to have certain characteristics of a location to help someone move through the piece or to the piece, just as an entry point. Okay, so I might do that just as a kind of vehicle, just as an invitation, but not much more than that. Some more than others. And some pieces that I make, I just like the way it's going, and I just stick with it. And sometimes they tend to be more symbolic or more kind of landscape oriented in terms of nature themes, but I just like the texture, I like the quality, I like just how to make them that way. It's not necessarily, again, there's no story. Okay, it's just, that's what the painting requires that I do in order to make it, to have a feeling that is fully formed and complete, without killing it.
Well, related to that, having grown up on the Gulf Coast and then moving to California, how would you say being in pretty different environments shaped your work?
Growing up on the Gulf Coast was basically flat. So there's the topography and the latitude and elevation was had a particular kind of feeling about it. Just a moving out as a plane, and you know, all of you art people in here, you know that the plane lays out as either, we could take a flat plane and then raise it up and it becomes a painting, but you know, you could lay it out as this flat thing. There's very little undulating surfaces there. Okay, so I didn't know what a undulating topography might have been, because I didn't grow up in it, except when I would come to visit family in San Francisco and say, whoa, look, you know, hills, mountains, wow, you know. It's huge. You know, you can't just see straight for 50 miles, right? You know, and so that was different because, and as a result, nature has certain qualities that it imbues in flora and fauna that is flat, as opposed that of you know, different areas where it's more mountains and hills. Okay, so just the quality of the shapes were different, and also the materials. Okay,
the materials that you bring to it, or the materials that you're seeing?
That I'm seeing, because I mean, you know, remember for years it didn't rain here, right? And everything was brown. And coming from Louisiana, everything was green. And I said, whoa, what's the matter? What's the matter with this place? Everything was brown and yellow. You know, there was no, you know, it didn't rain in what, 10 to 15 years or something, I don't know. You know, we go through these spells here, right? You know, now we're starting to look rich again, starting to look really nice and beautiful and full. You know, so that was my first hit. So it was very different. But when I first was an adult and came to the Bay Area and started to work, I wasn't focusing on nature. I was focusing really more on creative work. You know, this was during the late '60s, early '70s. You know, my work was more social political in a lot of ways. You know, and you know, the great cultural upheaval was going on. So you know, the work reflected that. Okay, even though basically it still had to do with nature, because I think the series I made during that time, during the protests and the, you know, that time was called Sticks and Stones, and really it was paintings of rocks, you know, and you know, and so, but that was my response. I just felt, you know, after graduate school, working with the figure for. You know, because that's my teacher, Paul George, was from New York, and he was an important figure painter, you know, and of course during those days all the students followed the teacher. And we were doing figures, but I never really felt comfortable doing the figure, you know, I mean, it's for me. And because I just felt that there was so much of a story had to be involved in it. And I wasn't really that kind of a storyteller as a painter. nor did I think it was important. I liked paintings as objects. As objects, you know, as things that you could turn upside down and it still worked. You know, okay, it doesn't matter how you look at it, it still worked. And that was important for me. And I never really had a sense of 3 dimensions or working with sculpture, and so I always felt that that was a place that was undeveloped within my own evolutionary path. So years can fast forward a little bit. You know, in the last 20 years, Kimberly and I, we've collected a sculpture, African material, African art, mainly West African Yoruba. And I have come to understand the 3 dimensions within the context of objects that have actually helped me to make these paintings. Now, of course, you would never know that because there's no symbolism of African art in this, but the point is that it's the conceptual frame that I'm using, you know, that allows something to be 3 dimensions and something to basically be flat, you know. So it's an interesting kind of conversation I have within me about how that works.
Yeah, can you say more about that?
Elaborate a little more about that?
Or walk me through like how that progresses.
Yes, well, you know, with painting, the plasticity of painting and the use of the materials, primarily the various hues and the very capacity of vibration from light to dark, gives us a sense of depth, even though it's an illusionary sense. Okay, and that would be probably the closest thing outside of just texture that you could have with a kind of 3-dimensional object. Now, painting as a painting, just as a painting, is an object. You know, it has, you know, okay. So, but it has a flatness about it that kind of predisposes it to make marks on it that would then give it a kind of sense of there's some push and pull of depth of 3 dimensions that might occur. You know, but it's not, and I don't try to even insinuate that. You know, I don't try to make things that has a depth of space or anything like that. I really don't, unless it requires it for the painting to be made. You know, and sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not, and often I don't know that. But I have to admit, I've never really understood 3-dimensional work. I love it, but I don't understand it. I can never do it, but I love it. It's really well done. You know, it's really. In fact, I have a neighbor here who makes magnificent soft 3-dimensional things with incredible materials. You know, so you know, I mean, so I admire people that do it. And I remember when I was a curator at Dominican University, I always had lots of sculpture exhibitions. You know, and because I thought it was important, not only for me, but also for the community, for the students, and for people just like me who needed to understand how something is formed within the capacity of a solid form, as opposed to the 2-dimensional, which is a different experience.
Well, it sounds like you're looking at those things and you're looking at them like with a beginner's mind, you know, studying them and then taking away what you can to apply them to your own medium.
Absolutely, it's all about information. I mean, I'm always, you know, observing is very important for me. I sit a great deal. I do a lot of meditation. Most of my solutions to all my painting problems come in my meditations. The problems get worked out, and then I immediately get up and I go do it. My process usually, before I'll be living in my studio, but when I wasn't living in the studio, as soon as I walk in this door, I'm ready to work because I know exactly what it is I'm doing. Because I thought about it before I got there. And that was a process that I just worked out in the last 10 years. So now, in 2 hours, I can do more, produce more in 2 hours than I used to be able to do in 7.
Yeah, I was curious.
You know, I mean, just because now I know exactly what I'm doing when I get there, and I just go right at it. And when I hit a place where I'm not sure, then I just stop and leave it.
You're so prolific. I mean, he can produce like 12 paintings in a year. I mean, these scale paintings, it's really impressive. So I was curious about that because I've done art myself, and I know a lot of artists, so I know how introspective it can be. So I was wondering how you manage to do all of that and be in the world, you know?
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, the resolutions are figured out in the meditations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know, that's what I do. That's how I do it. And I can just figure it out that way. And then it comes to me, and then I just move on it. Before it was struggling with the thing, it was hanging in the studio, it was, oh man, it was painful. Oh, it was painful. It was just, and often I would kill stuff because I was overworking. I would just stay with it too long, and I still do, but less so. Okay. And, and I have people that I can call in and say, what do you think? They might say, oh, put the brush down, Fuad, or don't go anymore. And I need that. That's why it's important to have, important friends, Lydia, and, all my friends, to just help me just to restrain myself. And I do believe in collaboration. I believe in asking when you need help. I believe that if I'm open, I could learn something from anyone. And I'm always looking to see what can I get from a situation that avails itself to me. Even the ones that don't seem optimal.
So you're working when you're not working?
I'm working when I'm not working. That's correct.
You're working all the time.
That's precisely it. But it's not work though. It's just observing and taking in and just trying to be present with where I am, and what gifts are coming to me just where I am. And often the uncomfortable times is when the richest part of your ORF comes to you. The uncomfortable times for me, and that's when I try to really just hone in and focus in and say, now how can I use this thing? You know what I mean? That it's making me feel so uncomfortable because really it's disguised as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your studio and like being among peers and getting some really valuable feedback from them. What are some examples of how that turns up in your work?
Well, I think that all makers share and give information and solutions to one another, historically as well as contemporaneously. Mm-hmm. Just by the mere fact that we can look at something that we like that's been well made. And what's the first thing you do? You say, oh, wow, that's magnificent. Then you start deducting how it was done. Mm-hmm. Okay, so those principles and those lessons are in the thing, are in the object themselves.
I believe it. Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing with, my mentors, my colleagues, you know what I mean? I'm always looking, I'm always seeing, and each one of us has something that we're really good at in terms of the perspective that we can all use and borrow, and that's okay. Yeah. Not verbatim, used, but certainly solutions are not for individual use only. Mm-hmm. And this whole thing, originality thing, that's all. It's been done before. It's been done already. Mm-hmm. It's just for us to find examples of it that we can use in order to make our work more mature, more developed, full, richer, closer to that internal thing that we're striving for. Which is basically whatever that thing is for each individual, when they know they've got it. And sometimes, often you never get it, but you're close to it, and you know when you're close to it. Or you know when you fall away from it. And when you fall away from it, you keep doing it until you get closer to it. And when these things start merging closer, then you kind of get there. And I think, in my opinion, I see makers who feel to me like they've arrived, but then I read about their process, they were having the same problems. I just read the Mad Enchantment, the thing with Monet. He hated all this shit. He didn't like anything. He burned paintings, right? You know this. He burned paintings. He was awful with that. And I said to myself, wow, man, that guy, what would have happened if he didn't have a spiritual practice? I mean, he made some great work. I'm not saying he made great work, but imagine though. I mean, all the angst around that though. And then when I saw this particular arm of work, I say, yeah, you know, I can see how you're struggling, you know, from one painter to another. I mean, you can see that, you know, and also because he even spoke to those things about just not being able to really to bring it close to what he thought the thing should be, and I think that's the thing with everybody. You know? So.
Two questions from that. First, trips to museums and exhibits are additional learning opportunities, obviously. So I don't know how many people have seen the Monet show, but it is him working through these processes.
Yeah, you can see it.
So when you go to these shows, do you come back energized, or do you feel a little like enervated, like you know, even this person was working through that?
Right. To be honest, I see, you know, we have the same struggles that he had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had a great friend, Clemenceau. Without Clemenceau, he never would have brought those paintings to the L'Orangerie. Mm-hmm. He never would have, because he was a hard person to work with. Nobody would have worked with this guy. Mm-hmm. You know, he had some higher-powered friends. That's right. That's how he got there. You know, because even Clemenceau was about to write him off at the end. Mm-hmm. You know, so my point is that as a maker, he was struggling with the very same things that we all struggle with. You know, but of course also what probably makes him, you know, rather unique is that he also had early success and was able to sell work at extraordinary prices, more than anybody during that time. So he had means, and he was able to build this studio to make this work that he saw, which was this visionary thing. It was going to be the gift to the you know, to the nation of France. You know. Because he could do that, he had the resources to do it. So, but yes, but according to Ross King in his book, he struggled. He mightily struggled with the process. You know, and when you read that and you go see it, and you see where he was struggling as another maker, one maker to another. Yes, you know, it's like plumbers talking to one another, doing shop talk. You know. Okay, so, but. Sometimes, yes, I am inspired, yes, of course. Yes.
I wanted to circle back a little bit to that striving for whatever it is our individual selves are striving for. Could you talk a little bit about what that feels like when you feel a solution has emerged?
Well, it's kind of daunting in a way because I remember Jim Willis. He's an important African art dealer in San Francisco, and he was a painter once. Yeah. And he asked himself this very same question, and he said that, you know, it was always that I could never get close to that thing, and I just realized that because I never felt comfortable that I would ever get close to it, I just gave it up. I gave up painting and decided to be a dealer. You know. So I guess the way I like to respond is that I think you get close, you know, and you just have to trust yourself that maybe there's a continuum of working towards something, and you're growing and you're maturing and you're learning and you're feeling something, and it's almost like you're being led on, and you don't want to give up too quick, you know. And I'm just grateful that I've been able to sustain, like my other colleagues here, just longevity of being able to continue to make. Because things are revealed as you go, and you don't know what that is yet. You know, I mean, it feels like I'm getting somewhere, but I'm not sure. And you always say, "Oh, it's the next series of work." Like, I can't wait to put this away and get to the next series. You know what I mean? So I'm very excited about that, but you never really know where that's going to go. You know, but if I can if I can find venues and have those of you here share the work and appreciate it, then I've done as best I could. I've tried to be authentic with the process. You know, to try to bring some sense of illumination to it, certainly. You know, some comfort of that it's okay to pursue these things that might feel difficult because they are, but you have to, it's a long game, you know, and it's not for, if you don't have a sense of longevity or a determinability about it, you know, you would not do this work. Because it will defeat you, because it requires a lot. It's complex, it demands a lot from you. And it's not for, you know, someone for the faint of heart, it's not, right? 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 You know, it's not, you know? So, you know, we're blessed, we're grateful that we, you know, have the stamina, support, encouragement, the opportunities as they open up for us, you know. So that's, and that kind of keeps us going, I think.
Have you ever gotten to the point where you thought you might just walk away?
Not yet.
No?
No, not yet. Maybe, but not yet.
What are some things that have been more challenging for you over the course of your career? Like some major milestones where you thought, like, okay, I'm moving into a different direction, with a lot of purpose and intent.
Well, you know, just as we get older, our body changes, and there is certain limitations that you have to, you know, submit to. And so my question to myself was, how could I continue to work at this scale and not hurt myself? Now I don't like the same question that Monet asked himself. That's why he found a certain scale that he could work with that didn't tax himself. And before I read that book, I also discovered that for me, the 60 inches, indefinite length, but the width, if I could keep it that way, then I could kind of work continuously and not be so compelled in terms of the physical demand, you know, because having pulleys and going up on ladders can be rather demanding. Like the more vertical pieces. I do them, but I just may not be able to do them in the way that I say could 20 years ago. You know, so that's important to me. I do a lot of the work on the floor, which allows me to work on a piece that has height, but it's different though. It becomes different, and so it you know, just physical demands. I think more than anything else. Because your mind, your intellect, your creative abilities are certainly agile. They're fluid. They're getting richer. They're getting fuller. You know, it's more mature. But then there's the physical limitations that then you have to sort of deal with. It'd be nice if you had assistants. You know, can run up the ladder, bring stuff up to you. You know, but if you don't have that, then you have to be creative and find ways to continue to do this work, but not hurt yourself. I think that's the key. So that's another form of creativity. How to work creatively. You know?
It's kind of problem solving too.
It's all about problem solving. Yeah, it's all about problem solving. Really, you know, how do you get the materials to this thing and make it do what you want it to do, you know, using this stick?
Yeah.
Basically. You know, with hairs on it. Right. You know what I mean? You know, wow, you know, that's huge, you know what I mean? And making it just, you know, move to your command and materials do what they do, and the surprises that come as a result of things that you don't even know are going to happen. You know what I mean? And you know, so yeah, it is a gift, I think, to have that experience, you know, and to be able to have a life where you say that you've done this. So you know, again, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
What have been some surprises for you, either in your own work, like what's emerged from your work, or over the course of your career, like watching the art world change, especially with like galleries closing and this move toward online?
Yes, right. Well, actually, I'm heartened because no one is doing this kind of work right now. So I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, but I'm, you know what I mean? And I feel good about it. Not that I'm trying to do something nobody's doing it, but I just continue, it just went this way. And so, and that seems to be where some interest is for me. So that was unexpected in a way. You know, I wasn't going to really, I never really made work for the market anyway. You know, I've been fortunate enough to have a couple galleries that I work with that you know, are able to move the work, so that's good, but I didn't do it for that reason, you know, and I won't. Because I think I need to do this, and I need to do this for me. And if there's other attributes or other benefits that comes from it, so be it. Great, it's good. You know, I mean, it's nice, you know, to move a painting, to sell a painting, and you know, to have some resources to continue to work. It's always great, you know. But my idea, my concept here, is to have a body of work that hangs together to create an environment. To have a kind of a locus where basically it can create an atmosphere. That's the goal. So it's not individual pieces, even though individual pieces constitute the group, and they can hold up and be total in themselves. But I see them as a group, though. You know, now I may not be able to have that. In fact, this show was really conceived to be 18 paintings. It's only 12 here, so it was a much bigger concept. But you know, you go with what you're offered. You know, maybe the next thing we do, you know, we'll be able to do that. And at some point, I see all these basically being just adjacent to one another, not separated. You know, because also what I'd like to see in a space is a random, have someone come in that doesn't know me, probably don't know you either, to come in and just put these paintings, just buttress them together as a continuous vision. Because they will work together, because they were kind of made, because the matrix is similar, even though the concepts and the compositions are somewhat different. And I'd like to see how that looks.
You stick them together in the studio?
I can, as far as big as my studio is, you know. In fact, actually, I was thinking about taking them to the street and putting them along PG&E, just to, you know, because I've got about 140 feet of running, you know. So yeah, no, I mean that's what I see. You know, I mean, unlike Monet's, but similar, just a continuous thing with different compositions, though. You know, kind of doing that. So.
What questions do you want people who see your work? What questions do you want your work to prompt in the people that see your work?
That's good. Basically, I guess I would like for someone just viewing the works in a singular piece, or the group, you know, probably singular pieces, is that you can just you can find a logic in it, you can find a harmony in it, you can find something that basically it invites you in, and then it says, now, how do you respond to me? You know, I try to make the works that they are open for invitation to come into them or to approach them, but then they demand something from you. And so I try to demand something from the viewer in a way. And not having symbolism per se, it's a little difficult, because sometimes, you know, you need a title or something just to kind of access something, but I think if the composition is such that it allows an entryway into the piece, then from that place on, the individual reacts to it in a way that they can or do, or not, or just walk away and go have a hamburger. You know, I mean, it doesn't. All I can do is do it, make the piece, and try to find, you know, create a harmony in it, some kind of logic that works, based on what I've observed in nature. You know, with the profundity of the complexity of nature, and somehow you look at a scene and there's all these different things, and it just all feels whole. It feels whole. You know, you got all this different stuff. Garbage, leaves, trees, you know, air, all of it, but it feels right. And so, you know, a composition kind of has to do that for me. And, you know, the academic thing is, you know, that you got the edges and the, you know, the spatial stuff that works, you know, yeah, that's, you know, but what, you know, like Caravaggio, I mean, the whole thing is that it just obliterates the edges. The piece just continues to move past the dimensions of the format. That's what I kind of see, you know. So, the next series. Wait until you see the next series. That's the way to get them back.
that in the process?
I'm sorry?
Is that in the process?
Yes, well, it will be, so it's here right now. It's here and it's here. It's in the heart and the head. And so I can see it, and yeah, let me just say this, that this body of work, which probably spans about, what, 6 years?
Mhm.
You know, from the oldest to the, maybe six.
Maybe less than that.
Maybe, okay. But first I saw them as a vision. I mean, I had them, I could conceptualize them. And then I just started producing. So same with the next year. I got it. Now it's a matter of just execution. Execution. Discipline and execution. In fact, what is it? Clear purpose, wise plan, persistence, and push. That's my strategy.
Do you have an inkling of what the title might be?
Oh, no, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that.
What time is it actually? Is
And
it time for questions?
Oh, well, sorry. Oh, yes, please. Oh, yes.
I have some technical ones, like
Oh,
very short
technical.
answers, but
Yeah.
like, I was assuming that you had this gigantic studio because one really appreciates these the further back you get.
Yes, that's right. That's
And
right.
then you blew my mind by saying you're painting on
Yeah.
the floor. And so I was just wondering how
Well,
do you...
Let me just say this, without giving away any of my trade secrets. They start off on the floor as gigantic watercolors.
I see. And then
That's all I'm going to say.
how far back, how many feet can you stand back in your
Oh, that's
studio?
another secret. That's another trade secret. Well, I have devices.
You're looking through something.
I have devices I
Yeah.
use.
Okay.
No, actually, I'm able to get back. And you're right. There is the intimacy of being within, like where I am right now, like the piece that I try to make really kind of inviting and exciting, and then of course you should read it from back where you are, and it's a different experience.
Yeah.
So the idea is that there's this experience, there's that experience, and there's from across the street experience.
And how did you come to select acrylic as your medium?
Because it was quick. I worked with oil for many years, and I was starting to have problems. I had an eye problem. I lost a vision in one eye, and it just messed me up. So I wanted something that was, fairly easily accessible. And I say, whatever material I choose, I want to be able to have a material where I can have infinite amounts, as much as I need to make paintings. I don't want to ever have to have a material where I only buy little bitty quantities of things. So with this material, with the acrylics I use now, I can get gallons of them, I can get quarts. I mean, so, and it just allows me the fluidity to just be able to, and improvisation of being able to just make work and just kind of keep going.
And are you working on multiple ones?
Yes. Yes.
I see a lot of rhythm going on.
Rhythm,
Do you
yeah.
listen to music?
No.
Okay, it's
I
all
don't.
internal.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've got, I love opera, I love classical music, I love blue note jazz, I love, Caribbean. I mean, I'm very eclectic, but often the music will get in the way because it will set a particular kind of thematic thing unconsciously that I can use or not, depending. Like my mentor, he only listens to heavy-duty blue note jazz, but that's his work, and you see it in there. But for me, I don't really need it. In fact, I work better when it's just quiet. The best I can, So, yes. Yes.
Can you give an example of how meditation helped you to solve a particular problem?
Well, I mean, it's just all it does is. I'm sorry, dear. What's your name? Irene. Yes. Irene. Oh no, I have a wonderful aunt, Irene.
You said that last time.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Irena. Yeah, she's wonderful. Wonderful. For me, it just it helps me just to tap into my intuitive. And things come much quicker that way, and they're unvarnished, and I don't have to take it through the critical intellectual thing.
Yeah.
So that's just another entity I use. It's not for everybody, but I don't have to debate myself. about something. Oh, it's
Yeah.
good. Oh, maybe not so good. Oh, maybe I should try it. Maybe I shouldn't try it. You know, no, none of that. I just go right to it. So that's
Is that at different stages in painting?
the what here.
Different stages in painting, or is it like at the beginning of the painting?
Well, actually, that happens while I'm making. The question is this happening while you're painting as well? Certainly, because you kind of, you know, as you know, you're attuned to things that come to you. You know, good and bad though, because certain impulses can come to me and I can ruin the piece because it wasn't the right impulse that I chose. You know, so it just, but basically, I just, I just try to see what feels right as it goes. And now what I do is like, I do little paragraphs in a painting, you know, a paragraph. If that feels right, then another paragraph, and then it kind of builds, and the paragraphs come together to make a chapter. I mean, for you writers here, I'm trying to, you know what I mean? You know, there's cynicism, you know what I mean? And then it slowly starts to come together, and then you look at it and say, well, the paragraph doesn't work. I want to edit that a little bit, change it, bring it back. Come in, you know, and then the whole thing starts to emerge. But as you know, any book or anything you write, you can always take it further. You can always elaborate further, correct? Same thing with this work, but you have to know when to stop too. So that's the, you know, for me, I've killed a mini piece. Yes, any yes, sir.
You said that you believe in collaboration, and I'm wondering if that has ever extended into the point of actually painting with another person, or if that's even possible.
Yeah, not yet, and it is possible. I did work on one mural with another person. Kimberly, actually, I had her paint on my first painting of last year. And actually, that painting sold. So I told her, I said, I'm gonna put you to work once we get back to the studio. You know, no, I think it's fun to have people kind of come in the beginning and just kind of make some marks, and you know, and I like that. I mean, I love collaboration. I think it's important. In fact, speaking of collaboration, I'm now working with some young makers and artists in Oakland who are about to open up a gallery in downtown Oakland. And they're photographers, they're painters, they're writers, and they're going to pair mature artists with emerging artists in exhibitions. And I like that concept, you know, and I also helped curate one of their shows because I'm an ex-curator, so I can kind of do that. And I'm trying to develop this cadre of younger makers to be around, so I can kind of, you know, they can, I can give my resources to them and expertise. But I think it's important, different views, and particularly with younger makers now. I'm trying to foster those relationships, and yeah.
What gallery is it?
It's gonna be. It hasn't started yet. It's going to be called the Pendulum Gallery, and they're negotiating. They've got a high-tech place downtown Oakland who's going to sponsor the gallery. So we'll see. I mean, they're negotiating it, but it's a great concept, and they've invited me to kind of consult with them, and you know, and of course, this is all, you know, there's no money involved. This is just, I want to just help them be successful at this because I think it's important, you know, and that's what I want. So because I remember all of the people that helped me, you know what I mean? It just, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't have that kind of support and help. People that just showed up when I needed them, you know, as I did. So yes, I will collaborate. I am collaborating, and I look forward to more collaborating with more artists and makers. Yes. Yes, sir.
I just noticed your use of the word maker.
Maker, yes.
Versus creator, and it made me think about a homemaker versus a home creator.
Okay.
Or the mother is the creator.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can just flesh that out. It's not complex. It's just that I say maker because I think it encompasses a greater field of people that make things well. You know, often we think I never use the word artist. not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just don't use it because I think that somehow it can be limiting in terms of the scope of who you're including in that. And I just, I've come to understand that anyone that does anything really well is an artist in a way. So I just say maker instead. That's my way of. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a writer.
Right.
And
Oh.
when I see your works and listen to you, it's sort of making me feel that there is a relationship between the viewer and the artwork
Oh, yeah.
that you are trying to invoke. So, just a couple of questions. Do you have any particular person in mind when you think about a viewer, or is it more abstract than that?
Yeah, no,
Talk about how you.
That's a
think
good
about
question. That's a good question. And this really gets to the grist of everything here. When I'm out in the world and I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and I'm feeling very deeply about the homelessness and the poverty and the inequality with economic distribution and stuff like that, and it absolutely paralyzes me because I say to myself, what can you do? What can you do to help to ameliorate aspects of this in some way? And the only thing that comes to me is that, go back to your studio and make the best paintings you possibly can, the most magnificent paintings you possibly can. Hopefully, this act will be what's necessary for some being, some individual, to see this and maybe feel some comfort of the destitute possibility situations they might find themselves, or not. That's what my ideal viewer is. Okay. But it could be anyone. It could be a billionaire. Also, they should also have the ability to enjoy themselves. So yeah, but it's to be open. I try to make it so it is open. It may be a language you don't understand, but somehow you're drawn in because you're curious. Is that help? Is that a little bit?
I wanted to say that you mentioned you're a writer. We're having a poetry reading immediately after this event. I hope you all can stay. Is part of that group that's going to be reading, and we'll have a few other readers as well. You're welcome to join us. Some of the poems that are going to be read have to do with paintings that are not in the show, but they are in the catalog, so I just want to point out if you're interested in the catalog, I think they have it at the front desk. And also, if you're not able to say, please sign the guest book. We'd love to get comments from you.
Yes, thank you so much, and enjoyed this conversation. I hope you were able to get something out of it.